Alright, welcome back to More Than PG's Gaming. I'm your host, Mune, and today I am continuing to play Neverwinter. We are still in Mod 14 on the PlayStation 4, as well as still on Mod 14 on the PC, and I know the preview's out there, and it should be releasing Mod 15 on PC come November 6th. So just a heads up, that is coming. But there are some changes that I really wish were included in Mod 15, and hopefully, if they're not, they'll be in Mod 16. Okay? And there are a few things that I really want to happen. Okay? And you might be thinking, well, the game's already perfect. How else could they change it? Well, honestly, the game is kind of far from perfect. It has its nice pieces of information, but my major concern here is something that's been kind of overlooked for a little while, and that is uh, the guild Stronghold. So, what is Guild Stronghold? Well, Guild Stronghold is your guild. Okay, I'm part of a guild called the RNG Screwed Me. We have members. We have plots, which produce certain things, like this lumberyard that produces wood every hour. We have other things that help increase those things, their production. And then we have our boons. Okay? So why am I addressing this? Why should I even bother? I'm already part of a rank 20 guild. Why should I care? Well, because I'm not the only one that's been complaining about this for a while. There are plenty of people. And what the heck are you talking about, Moon? It's what I always get asked. Well, what I'm talking about is something in particular with the coffer. Okay, so going to our guild, which we are doing okay. I'm going to say show all. Okay, so I can take a look. Okay, so we have the heroic shards of power, which you earn. I believe it's like 20 a day. Uh, Unless it's during double shards, then you can collect up to 40 a day. All right. Uh, Adventure shards of power, which you get for uh, just kind of running around and doing quests. You can earn 20 a day, unless you go to other areas, and then you can earn a little bit more. Dungeoneering shards, you earn, I think it's like 20 a day also by running dungeons. Again, doubled if during a double shard event. Conqueror shards. Okay, these have been widely regarded as the crappy currency because nobody wants to do PvP, and I understand not wanting to use it for anything. So it is one of the major problems. But we have all these other resources too, like the wood, stone, metal, food, which are from the production structures. We have our labor, gold, glory, gems, surplus equipment, AD chest. Okay, so what I want to talk about here in this section of the stockpile is the need for gold, okay, and glory and gems. So this entire section I think needs to be overhauled. Okay, and why do I say that? Well, the major source of labor is doing Stronghold quests or donating uh, profession assets into here, which, as you know, in Mod 15, they're kind of getting rid of those a little bit. So we don't necessarily have that way to build it up really quickly anymore, and thus the only way to do it is do the Stronghold quest. For a rank 20 guild, that's no big deal to me. I'm like, well, whatever. But anybody who's not may soon find yourselves having difficulties filling your labor. All right? Same thing with gold. Gold used to be pretty much worthless, and now it's gotten to the point in Mod 15 that we're going to need gold for all of our professions. So nobody's going to want to donate this. Okay? Glory, again, it comes from PvP. Again, people don't want to run it. Not as much as you might think. A lot of people are PvE only. So this is a major hurdle for a lot of smaller guilds. Gems were everywhere for the longest time. And the problem right now going into Mod 15 is that refining stones are no longer going to drop. Okay? They're no longer going to come from your rewards for leveling up or heroic encounters. So they're just not going to be around as much. So there's not going to be an abundance of these anymore unless you have additional things giving you the gems. So another thing that needs to change. Mind you, you can get things to make these. So temporary structures that require the four things up here, which is wood, stone, metal, and food. Okay, but let me continue. Surplus equipment. Enemies apparently are still going to be dropping equipment. Okay, the problem with this is that players now will have to make a decision if they want to turn it to refinement or donate it. Okay, only green equipment currently can be donated as surplus equipment, or you can make it through professions. Mind you, you can make all of these through professions too, but I don't know if that how much that's going to be changing with the new profession system. Okay, and then same thing with Astral Diamond Chest. You can make them through professions, uh, but they no longer drop in a lot of places that they used to. Mind you, you can get a lot of these things by running Dragonflight, Influence, Stronghold Quest, but at the same time, this is something that's been lacking for a long time. So I believe that there needs to be a change there. Okay, so let's move on to the treasures area. Okay, there are five things under the treasures area. We have treasures of tyranny, frozen treasures, fey trinkets, and dark gifts, as well as influence. But I want to talk about these four in particular. Okay, we have a major problem when it comes down to this section, mainly because after you have beaten these sections, you go to higher level areas. That means Bryn Shindar's, Icewind Dale, extra areas. That's Bryn Shindar, I cannot talk, Lonely Wood, Cold Run, and Sea of Moving Ice. Okay, those four types of areas could have currencies that, or maybe their current currencies that could be donated for frozen treasures. That's what we really need for a change. Okay, and people are like, but what would I do anywhere else? I was like, okay, Fey trinkets. Fey trinkets you originally get for Sharandar. Okay, but you could also include areas like the River District. Makes sense because we have a lot of things that are kind of fey in nature out there. So maybe giving us a currency or using the current currencies to donate for fey trinkets. All right, treasures of tyranny. I would say probably Chult and Omu. Okay, simply because there's such a large variety of stuff out there, and it feels very tyrannical, kind of like dragons. Okay, and Untamed. You could easily turn any of the currencies out there for treasures of tyranny. Okay, and then last but not least, dark gifts. I would definitely use an area like Barovia. So everything that you get from Barovia could probably be used in dark gifts. Okay, that's something that I'm going to highly suggest for changes. Okay, it's probably most needed, and most people are probably playing in the section of Barovia right now, which means that the area where they've been lacking the most, and if you could see here, which area has been lacking the most, especially when you start getting up there in guild hall levels, is people tend to be lacking in the dark gifts category, and generally then frozen treasures, and then followed by fey trinkets, and then treasures of tyranny. So rather than trying to say, well, the only way you're going to get dark gifts is by playing Stronghold Quest, like running influence and having enemies drop them, or doing something along the lines of Dragonflight or Marauders, or the default of getting the dark gifts, which is going out to Dreadring, maybe having Barovia give them too. Okay, because this is severely lacking for a lot of guilds. They just don't have the dark gifts to upgrade stuff at a very good pace. Okay. And then lastly, I'm barely going to talk about influence. Influence is still fairly abundant. Nothing's really changed with it, so I'm not really too concerned about influence. Influence is fine as it sits. Maybe reducing the requirements for everything by a little bit would be nice, because a lot of guilds are still struggling to get up to 20. And I know sometimes you might be thinking that players need to have something to drive for. Yeah, but at the same point, if it seems helpless and pointless, they're not going to do it. Simple as that. And I've been in a guild long enough that I know that. It took us almost 2 years to get from Guild Hall 1 to Guildhall 20. Okay, that is a lot of time, and we started before alliances were even a thing on PS4. So that being the case, though, we had plenty of help, and we definitely were assisting people in our own alliance after we reached our ranked 20 guild and no longer needed influence. So, but again, it kind of strives to create a sense of community. I understand that. But with the requirements as they are right now, it takes so much of the resources to get to the next goals. Like, I'm looking at my guild right now. I'm just going to take a look at one of the requirements, okay? So this is the requirements for a warehouse, okay? And you probably saw that I had green marks and everything like that. That was because I was in Alliance, okay? But this is what it actually looks like. All right? So what does it mean? Well, it means that when you look at this, you need 281,000 frozen treasures, 924,000 treasures of tyranny, 370 gold, which is nothing, honestly. 16,000 heroic shards of power, 119 metal, stone, and wood. Okay, which that is generally built over time, also. But for the things that aren't generating at an auto for a certain period of time, these other currencies are incredibly difficult to actually get. Especially when you don't have a whole lot of players in your guild, or maybe they're just not active in running stuff, okay? Or even in your alliance. It is really hard to get people to actually do these things, but we need some changes in the guilds, okay? And I know people have been speculating that we're going to be getting a guild hall 21 or more, simply because of the wording that's here. I'd like to see that, honestly, but at the same time, I don't want to see that. The reason why I want to see that is because then maybe we can see a few more improvements with the guild, but at the same time, the reason why I'm not so inclined for it is because it took us so long to get from like 19 to 20, and with the way that they have been spacing it out and what raising the requirements, I don't want to see a situation where it requires a million plus influence to go from one thing to the next. Like, I'm going to use let's see if we can find a relatively high guild here. Here's a 19, Ascent. Okay. So Ascent is one of our great guilds here. You look at the requirements, you need 683,000 influence. All right. I know a lot of you out there are like, well, that doesn't sound like too much. Okay, I'll put it into a better perspective. 683,000. I'm not even going to count the 800 at the end. But if you're running a single influence run on a single character, it would take you 1,708 days. Okay? Mind you, if you divide that up by, let's say, 20 people, let's say your guild has 20 people, it would still take you 85 days to make that strive. If you were in an alliance and everybody was pouring into your guild and was doing it daily, it would still take you a week. Okay? That's assuming everybody does their influence all at the same time and only does it on one character. Because I'll be honest with you, I've had so many guild members in our guild who won't pull their weight. Okay? And I understand there's a big overlying problem. People just won't play. Okay? The problem is that good luck getting everyone to pull together and do this one thing. Okay? Because people are going to be all over the place. They'll be like, well, I'm not going to do it until they do it for me, and I'm not going to bother. I get that. I completely get that. Alright? And there are guilds that I have seen where they're like, yeah, I want to be in a position where I can get the upgrades, But then what happens is they get the upgrades, and then like they're like, oh yeah, thanks, and then they leave without actually what do you call it, reciprocating the donation. Okay, so if you're an alliance and you're getting donations from other guilds in your alliance, reciprocate. Try to help them out a bit, and it doesn't necessarily have to be in the same way. Okay, I mean, there are individuals in my alliance, at least, that had a situation where we actually had a lot of extra influence. Okay, we didn't say, well, we're just going to go ahead and, uh, you know, donate everything to them. It was more like, oh yeah, we'll make an agreement. You help us, we help you, kind of thing. And we did eventually just go ahead and donate it all to that guild because they needed it. Now, what does that mean for everybody else? Well, that means that you have to build that strong community, that strong sense of belonging with your guild, and get them all basically on the same page. If you're unable to do that, you're gonna struggle a lot. Okay, and I think that's roughly about 90% of the guilds in this game is they struggle because they can't get people to actually contribute. Okay, and the requirements are so very high because if I said, oh yeah, donate your 400 influence as well as all your shards of power. Oh, and if you have any other resources, donate them to my guild too. That seems really selfish. Okay, and eventually people will be like, well, that's not very fair. Why are we only building up one guild? Well, that's why. It's because that sense of community has that built up with the mentality that if I scratch your back, hopefully you'll scratch mine. Okay? And in most cases, a lot of really strong guilds, they'll do that. But I've also seen guilds play that card, oh yeah, I'll totally help you. And then they'll help a little bit. And then when the time comes for them to basically get the reciprocation, they won't get it. So, or even maybe they'll bend over backwards for the other guilds. I've seen that happen too. So, hopefully this has been helpful and pointing out the key changes that need to happen. But my major focus that I really want to put on it is we have enough areas. We need to change our currencies a little bit so that we can actually donate them to the other things, as well as maybe lowering the cost for some of the things that are no longer in abundance. Okay, and influence is not the big abundance one that I'm concerned about. It's everything else that is under that second category because AD is basically gone unless you make it. Okay, gems are basically gone unless you pull them or have something to make them drop. Gold is going to be used for professions, so the demand has gone through the roof. And labor, we had the professions overhaul, so that's gone. So it goes a long way. I mean, even surplus equipment's kind of changed. It used to be that you couldn't do anything with surplus equipment other than donate it. And then they made a method to turn it into refinement. And yeah, here we are. So, a lot of changes. And AD, a lot of people don't like to just donate their AD into the coffer. So, keep that in mind when you're playing. And especially if you're like a guild leader or even an officer of your guild, you might want to convey this information to your guild leader, and that is people probably don't want to give away their money that they work very hard to get in this game to try to upgrade the guild. So just keep that in mind. There are some that will be willing to do it, but the vast majority of people will not. And I think that's one of the things that really needs to change. I honestly really wish they would do an overhaul and have it completely based off of a bar of progress. Okay? And that is, oh, your guild gets improved by running 5 encounters and doing these quests. And it's not really, you don't get resources for it necessarily, but it fills up a bar. And you get guild marks at certain milestones or something like that. That way it can't be something along the lines of everybody's doing all the work and so they're getting all the guild marks, which means they're getting all the benefits of the money system. All right. And there are a lot of people who will be out there looking for guilds just to donate crap. Okay? So they can get guild marks because the guilds that they're normally in, they've ran out of space. They've upgraded everything. Or they have no space for the one thing that they want to donate. I think a few months ago we had somebody approach our guild and say, well, I need to donate a bunch of resources. Can I join your guild? I'm like, yeah, whatever. And what they ended up doing is they ended up donating, I'm going to say at least, a million guild marks worth of stuff into the coffer. Which included, for the most part, the surplus equipment. So just kind of keep that in mind when you're trying to deal with that kind of scenario. And I'm hoping that these changes can happen. I'm hoping that Cryptic decides to go and watch my videos and takes this into consideration, because this is a big thing. Because if they can change this, they're going to have a lot happier players. They're going to be more likely to stay, and they're more likely to want to keep playing. And if you don't have enough people to play, the game's just not going to last, okay? So you got to keep driving for people to join, okay? And having certain incentives while you're playing is definitely a good way to do it. And it doesn't even have to be big incentives. Simple incentives are good enough, And if you have a system like I mentioned where, you donate stuff and, you fill up a progress bar, maybe everybody in the guild can benefit from it. Okay? That way, if it's more of a sense of belonging. Okay? But if not, if you're just going to keep the guild mark system intact, so be it. But you need to make the other changes to the coffer, okay? At least the changes that I asked for, which is reducing the cost of some of the things and adding in the possibility of the new areas being thrown in for the currencies for those treasures. So, and I don't mean creating new sections for those treasures. I mean just adding them on to the existing sections, okay? Because I know that some people are like, don't do that. They'll just add a new section. We'll just call it like Barovian treasures. And it's like, no, we're not going to go there. Okay? That's a horrible idea. Don't do that. Okay? So, alright. I feel like I'm done ranting on this one. Thanks for watching. And this has been Mooney playing Neverwinter.